The galaxy had known peace for more than 500 years. The Valari Alliance, a group of noble and ancient species, ruled with logic, diplomacy, and harmony. Their worlds were bright, their cities vast, and their science nearly perfect. War was something they only read about in their archives, something primitive, something long forgotten, but peace never lasts forever. It started at the edge of their borders, a faint signal, a colony that stopped sending transmissions. Then another world went silent. At first, the Valari believed it was a malfunction, a technical issue or an accident. But when the first survivor ship limped back into Alliance space, they learned the truth. A new species had arrived, the Karath swarm. They were not a civilization. They were a hunger that walked, countless insect-like creatures that devoured everything, metal, soil, flesh, even air. They didn't negotiate. They didn't think. They only consumed. In weeks, 5 Valari colonies were gone. In months, 10. Each destroyed world left behind nothing but dust and silence. The Valari High Council gathered in their shining capital, Valar Prime, desperate and afraid. The council speaker, Tareth Vel, stood before a massive star map. Red lights marked every fallen world. His blue eyes trembled as he spoke. "We have tried to reason, to communicate, to show peace," he said softly. "But the Karath understand nothing but destruction. We must call for help." "From whom?" asked another counselor. "The Arctans? The Tyrannel? The Sarai Dominion?" "No," Tareth replied. "They are too far, too slow. There is only one left. The humans." The chamber fell silent. Humans. A species known only through old records and rumors. They were isolated, distant, living in a system no one dared visit. The last time the Valari encountered them, humanity had just begun building small colonies. The Valari had watched them from afar, chaotic, emotional, violent. They called humans young savages, barely civilized, but desperate times leave no room for pride. Tareth sent the signal, a wide-band distress call echoing across the void. The message was simple: help us. Our worlds are dying. And then they waited. 3 months passed. No reply came. The Valari began to lose hope. Refugees flooded their inner worlds. Entire fleets were destroyed trying to slow the Karath advance. Tareth's hands shook as he signed the evacuation order for the outer sectors. Every night he looked up at the stars and whispered, "If anyone hears us, please, help us." Then one night something strange happened. A faint pulse appeared on their long-range sensors, a burst of encrypted code, unknown in format, impossible to translate. It came from deep space, far beyond their known routes. Before they could decode it, more signals followed, dozens, then hundreds. A wave of silent transmissions spreading across the void like a heartbeat. And then the human fleet arrived. At first, the Valari thought it was another Karath attack. The sky above their colony, Alarisford, turned dark, as hundreds of enormous ships dropped from faster-than-light travel. But these vessels were not organic, not alive. They were angular, cold, built for war. Their hulls bore the emblem of a blue circle divided by 3 lines. The United Earth Command. The Valari defense outposts sent cautious messages. The human ships did not respond immediately. They scanned everything, atmosphere, terrain, life signs, before opening a single channel. "This is Commander Elena Drake of Task Force Helios," said a woman's calm, strong voice. "We received your distress signal. Situation report?" The Valari transmission officer trembled. We are overrun. The Karath are moving toward our main city. We cannot," Drake interrupted gently. "Copy that. Begin evacuation of civilians. Hold your defense line for 6 hours. We'll handle the rest." Before the Valari could ask what she meant, the human fleet moved. What followed was unlike anything the Valari had ever witnessed. From the orbiting ships, streaks of fire cut through the clouds. Kinetic bombardments, precise and devastating. Karath nests were turned to glass in seconds. On the ground, armored dropships landed with thunderous force, releasing soldiers encased in black exosuits. They moved like shadows, efficient and silent, their weapons burning through the swarm. The Valari soldiers, who had trained only for ceremonial defense, could only stare as the humans fought. There was no hesitation, no fear. Every action was coordinated. Every soldier covered another. When one fell, 2 others stepped forward. The Karath had met many races, but never humans. Within hours, the tide turned. The swarm retreated into the forests, leaving behind burning hives. The humans did not cheer or celebrate. They simply regrouped, scanned for survivors, and began fortifying the area. When Commander Drake finally met the Volari leaders, they were still speechless. The meeting took place inside a crystal hall once used for art and music. Now the walls were cracked and covered in dust. Drake entered with 2 officers, both silent, faces hidden behind dark visors. She removed her helmet, revealing sharp eyes and short black hair streaked with gray. Her expression was calm but unreadable. Tyrannel Vel stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Commander Drake, on behalf of the Volari Alliance, I thank you and your people for answering our call. You have saved us." Drake looked at him for a long moment before replying. "Don't thank us yet. We just arrived. What we saw down there, that's not a battle. That's an infection spreading across your worlds." "Infection?" Tyrannel asked. Drake nodded. "The Karath don't fight wars. They consume. If they're here, it means someone else fell before you. Probably entire systems. My orders are to contain the swarm permanently." Her words sent chills through the Volari. "Contain how?" Drake's lips pressed into a thin line. "By fire." Over the next few days, humans and Volari worked side by side. The humans set up orbital shields, automated turrets, and satellite networks. Their technology was both familiar and terrifying. Efficient, practical, built for war. The Volari noticed something strange about them. The humans didn't sing while they worked. They didn't rest. They didn't pray. They simply moved, one task after another, eyes cold but focused. At night, the Volari scientists gathered near the human camps, watching the tall figures sitting silently around portable heaters. Some removed their helmets, revealing faces lined with fatigue. They spoke softly among themselves about strategy, supply routes, and casualties. But when they looked up at the stars, their eyes carried a different kind of weight, the look of people who had seen too much death. Tyrannel once approached Drake during one of these nights. "Your people fight like no one I have ever seen," he said quietly. "You move without hesitation. You kill without mercy. Do you not fear what you are becoming?" Drake stared at the glowing horizon. "We became this a long time ago," she said. "Earth learned the hard way that peace doesn't come by wishing for it. Sometimes to protect life, you must fight like a monster." When the next Karath assault came, it was larger than before. A sky full of burning meteors carrying the swarm's ships. The Volari panicked, but the humans were already ready. Their fleet opened fire before the creatures even entered orbit. The space above Alaris 4 became a storm of light and metal. As the battle raged, Tyrannel stood in the command center, watching human strategy unfold. The world of Alaris 4 was quiet again. Smoke rose from the burned fields where the Karath once crawled. The wind carried the smell of ash and iron. The Volari people walked among the ruins of their homes, grateful to be alive but uneasy. Everywhere they looked, they saw humans, tall, armored, silent, repairing, scanning, building. To the Volari, they looked like machines, not men. Commander Elena Drake stood at the edge of a shattered ridge, watching the horizon. Her armor was scarred and covered in soot. The battle had been won, but she knew victory never lasted long. The Karath would return, they always did. She tapped the small communicator on her wrist. "Drake to Fleet Command," she said. "Fleet Command here," a calm voice answered. "Send another drop team to Sector 4. I want drones sweeping the valley. No biological traces left unchecked." "Understood. Reinforcements en route." Drake sighed and looked down at the Volari city below. Beautiful towers of crystal and light stood beside the gray metal fortresses her engineers had built. It was like seeing 2 worlds forced to live in the same space, one of peace, the other of war. In the main city, the Volari tried to show hospitality. They offered the humans food and shelter, but the soldiers refused politely. The humans ate ration packs, slept in their armored tents, and never removed their weapons. To the Volari, it was unsettling. To the humans, it was survival. Council Speaker Tyrannel Vel visited the human camp one morning. The camp was a strange sight. Long rows of gray modules, drones flying between them, soldiers moving with mechanical precision. Every few seconds, the sound of drills and scanners filled the air. Tyrannel found Commander Drake studying a holographic map. She looked up as he approached. "Councillor Vel," she greeted. "I hope your people are safe." "They are," Tyrannel said gently. Because of you. He paused. But many of them are afraid. Drake raised an eyebrow. Afraid of what? Of you, he said. Of your soldiers. They say you fight like machines. Without fear. Without pause. They wonder if humanity has lost its heart. Drake stared at him for a long time, then spoke quietly. We haven't lost it. We just locked it away. If we didn't, we would never survive. Tareth tilted his head. Why hide it? She sighed. Because compassion slows you down on the battlefield. And out here, a second's delay costs lives. You asked for help, counselor. You called for saviors. What you got were survivors. As days passed, the Volari began to see how humans fought. And how they lived. The human engineers built defense walls faster than any Volari machine could measure. Their drones patrolled day and night, scanning for the faintest sign of the swarm. Their soldiers trained constantly, even after long battles. They sparred in silence, practiced aim, and checked their weapons until they gleamed. But it wasn't their discipline that unsettled the Volari. It was their eyes. Even the youngest soldier carried eyes that had seen too much pain. There was a deep tiredness in them, like people who had been fighting forever. In one corner of the camp, a Volari medic named Sira 10 watched as a human doctor treated wounded soldiers. The doctor's hands were quick and precise. When a soldier flinched, he whispered calm words, his tone steady and gentle. Sira approached him. You care for your wounded with such patience, she said softly. I thought humans only cared for battle. The doctor smiled faintly. We fight because we care, he said. We don't want others to suffer like we did. Sira tilted her head. Did humanity suffer much? His smile faded, enough to never forget. The next evening, the first group of Volari civilians approached the human walls. They carried flowers and crystal lights, a traditional gesture of thanks. But when they came near, the human sentries didn't move. Their black helmets reflected the light back like mirrors. The Volari froze, unsure if they were welcome. One child, no older than 10, stepped forward and placed a flower near the soldier's boot. The soldier looked down for a long moment, then slowly bent and picked up the flower. He attached it to his armor and nodded once. That small gesture spread through the city like a spark. The next morning, dozens of Volari children waited near the walls, bringing flowers, sketches, even small songs. Some of the human soldiers began to remove their helmets for the first time. The Volari saw their faces, tired, scarred, human. Not monsters, not machines. Still, fear remained. The older Volari whispered among themselves, wondering what price Earth would demand for its help. Inside the command tent, Drake was in a meeting with her officers. A holographic map hovered between them, showing red dots moving toward the colony. Scout drones confirmed new swarm activity, said Lieutenant Wren. About 40 ships, small scale but moving fast. Pattern? Drake asked. They're testing the perimeter. The swarm learns from every defeat. Drake's jaw tightened. Then we'll make this lesson cost them dearly. Her officers nodded. One of them, Captain Malik, frowned. Ma'am, local civilians are getting too close to the perimeter. We can't fire heavy weapons without risking them. Drake looked at the map. Then move them. Evacuate Zone 3. That's half the city, Malik said quietly. I know, she replied. But we're not losing another inch. When Tareth heard about the evacuation order, he rushed to confront Drake. You can't just push my people from their homes, he argued. I can if their homes are about to become a war zone, Drake said firmly. They have nowhere else to go. Drake stepped closer, her eyes sharp. If you want them alive, they'll go. I'm not debating survival, counselor. I'm ensuring it. Tareth stared at her, speechless. There was no anger in her tone, only cold certainty. He realized then that humans didn't seek approval. They sought results. He exhaled slowly. You fight like no one I've ever seen, he said. Even your compassion is hard. Drake's voice softened slightly. We fight hard because peace is fragile. Every time we think it's safe, something comes to destroy it. So we learn to strike first. That night, the humans prepared for another attack. The Karath swarm came just before dawn. Black shapes poured from the clouds, crashing into the ground like living meteors. The Volari watched from a distance as the human defenses came alive. Turrets roared. Drones flew like sparks in the wind. Human soldiers moved in perfect formation, every step timed, every shot clean. The Karath hissed and screamed, but the humans didn't flinch. They burned the creatures down with plasma fire and kinetic bursts. The ground shook, the air turned red, and within an hour, the swarm was gone. When the smoke cleared, hundreds of Karath corpses lay across the field, and not a single human retreated. The Volari soldiers watching the battle stood frozen. They had never seen such power, such control. It was terrifying, and yet it brought a strange kind of comfort, because for the first time the Volari realized the humans might actually win. After the battle, the human soldiers gathered their wounded. The Volari brought water and light crystals to help. They saw the humans carry their injured comrades with quiet care, not shouting, not crying, only silent determination. Commander Drake walked through the rows of soldiers, checking each one. When she reached a fallen private, she knelt beside him and placed her hand on his shoulder. The soldier's armor was cracked, his breathing shallow. "You did well," Drake said softly. "You held the line." The soldier smiled weakly. "We always do, ma'am." He closed his eyes as the medics carried him away. Tareth, who had watched from afar, approached her. "You mourn for your people," he said. Drake nodded. "Every one of them. But you never show it," he said quietly. She looked at him. "If we show it, we break. And we can't afford to break." Tareth's gaze softened. "You humans, you are not like us." Drake turned toward the battlefield. "No," she said. "We're not. We became what the universe needed us to be, monsters in metal. But sometimes monsters are the only ones who can stand against the dark." As the sun rose, light fell over the silent field. The Volari people stood beside the humans, no longer calling them saviors, but something else, guardians forged by pain. And though fear still lingered, one truth echoed across Alaris IV. When the galaxy called for help, Earth had answered, not with angels, but with warriors who carried the weight of monsters and the heart of mankind. The days after the second battle felt strangely quiet. For the first time, the people of Alaris IV began to believe they might survive. The skies were clear, and the Krath attacks had stopped. The humans had built a wall of fire around the planet, orbital stations, defense cannons, drones, and watchtowers that never slept. But peace in a war never lasts long. It only hides before returning again. Commander Elena Drake stood inside her command tent, staring at a holographic map glowing red with enemy signals. Across the map, the Karath swarms were spreading in new directions, avoiding human patrol routes and attacking weaker colonies. "They were learning. They adapt too quickly," said Captain Malik, her second in command. "Every time we hit them, they change their pattern. It's like they're thinking." Drake shook her head. "Not thinking, reacting. They don't learn like we do. They evolve, and they're faster than we expected." Lieutenant Wren stepped forward. "Should we call for reinforcements from Earth?" Drake hesitated. "No, Earth's fleets are stretched thin. We handle this ourselves," Wren frowned. "Ma'am, if the swarm changes direction again, they'll hit the Volari moon colonies." Drake's eyes darkened. "Then we'll protect them, even if it costs us everything." On the Volari moon, Tyrannel, panic had already begun. The moon's silver towers sparkled against the blackness of space, but behind that beauty was fear. Refugees from destroyed colonies filled every hall. Supplies were running low. Council Speaker Tareth Vel had traveled there to calm his people. Standing before a crowd of frightened citizens, he spoke with his usual calm voice. "The humans have promised protection. They have never failed us yet." But even as he said it, doubt filled his mind. The humans' methods were powerful, yes, but also terrifying. Every victory left behind ruins and silence. The Volari had asked for help, and perhaps they had asked for too much. When the Karath swarm appeared in orbit above Tyrannel, every defense system on the moon went active. The sky filled with red dots, the beginning of another storm. The human fleet reacted instantly. From their flagship Resolute, Commander Drake issued orders with sharp precision. "All ships form a defensive wall. Ground units prepare fallback positions. Civilian evacuation priority 1. The fleet moved like clockwork. Massive battleships formed a barrier around the moon, unleashing plasma fire and railguns. Dozens of Karath bioships burst open under the assault, but more came. On the surface, the Valari ran for shelters while human soldiers guided them toward safety. The ground trembled as the first swarm pods landed. The creatures poured out like rivers of black oil, tearing through walls and streets. Drake's voice echoed through every human comm link. "Hold the line. Do not let them reach the evacuation ships." The battle turned brutal. The humans fought fiercely, but the Krath came in endless waves. The swarm didn't stop, didn't fear, didn't think. They only consumed. Inside a Valari temple converted into a shelter, hundreds of civilians huddled together. The sound of battle outside grew closer with every minute. Valari guards tried to hold the doors, but they knew they couldn't last. Then came the sound they had learned to trust, the roar of human dropships. Black-armored soldiers burst through the clouds of smoke, weapons blazing. They formed a shield around the temple, firing in precise bursts. One Valari child cried out, pointing at the humans. "Monsters!" His mother hushed him quickly, whispering, "No, child. Those are the monsters who protect us." From her command post in orbit, Drake watched the battle unfold. Red lights filled the map, too many. Her fleet was outnumbered 3-1. Captain Malik turned toward her. "We can't hold them much longer, Commander." Drake's voice remained calm, though her heart was heavy. "Evacuate the civilians. Get them all off the surface. And our troops?" Malik asked. She looked at the screen where hundreds of human units were still fighting below. "They'll hold until the last ship lifts." Malik stared at her in disbelief. "That's half our ground forces. You're ordering them to stay behind." Drake's voice grew quiet. "Someone has to buy time. If we don't, the Karath will overrun the evacuation." Malik clenched his fists. "That's thousands of our own." Drake met his gaze, her tone firm but soft. "And millions of theirs." On the moon's surface, Captain Reed Halden, commander of Delta Battalion, received the order. "Confirmed," said the voice in his earpiece. "You are to hold the line until civilian evacuation is complete." Reed looked around at his exhausted soldiers. Many were wounded, their armor scorched and broken. But none hesitated. They had done this before. He turned to his troops. "You heard the command. We're the wall. We hold until they're clear." A chorus of voices answered through the comms. "For Earth. For all." And they fought. Wave after wave of Karath slammed into their line. The humans didn't break. Even as their ammunition ran low, they fought hand to hand, using blades, shields, and whatever strength they had left. Above them, transport ships lifted off, carrying the Valari civilians into orbit. The humans stood beneath the fire of engines and roared one last time before the swarm drowned them in darkness. In orbit, the last evacuation ship docked with the fleet. "Evacuation complete," reported Malik in a broken voice. "Delta Battalion?" No signal. Drake closed her eyes for a long moment. The silence that followed was heavy. Then she gave the next command. "Fire the orbital array." The fleet obeyed. Massive cannons glowed with blue light, and beams of plasma fell from the sky. The entire surface of the moon turned white as fire consumed the Karath, and everything else. When the light faded, Tyrannel was silent. The swarm was gone, but so were thousands of human soldiers. Hours later, Drake stood on the observation deck of her flagship. The moon below was cracked and dark, its cities turned to ash. The Valari fleet hovered nearby, silent in mourning. Counselor Tareth arrived through the airlock. His expression was pale, his voice trembling. "Commander, you burned an entire moon." Drake didn't turn to face him. "I ended the infection. At what cost?" Tareth whispered. "Thousands of your people died to save ours. You could have pulled them out." Drake's eyes were hard, but her voice carried deep sorrow. "If I did that, your people would be dead. We made a choice. It's what we do." Tareth took a slow breath. "You call it choice. I call it madness." She looked at him then, her gaze piercing. "You called us saviors. But saviors don't survive wars like this. Only monsters do." Tareth couldn't find words. For the first time, he understood the truth behind the human's silence. The price of mercy was always blood. Days later, the Valari held a ceremony for the fallen. Crystals of light floated in space above the moon, each carrying the name of a human who had died. The Valari sang songs of gratitude and sorrow. Commander Drake stood alone, watching the lights drift into the dark. Her soldiers saluted in silence. There was no music, no speech, only respect. Tareth approached her quietly. "You saved millions of us, Commander." "I was wrong to doubt you," Drake shook her head. "No, you were right to doubt. You saw what we are capable of. That fear keeps you safe. Tareth looked at her, his voice gentle. Then tell me, Commander, why do you still fight? What drives humanity to keep going when all it brings is pain? Drake looked toward the stars. Because if we stop, no one else will stand. Someone has to carry the burden. Someone has to be the monster that guards the gate. That night, as the human fleet moved to its next mission, the Volari watched them go. The galaxy whispered of the terrible power of Earth, a power that brought both hope and fear. And somewhere, in the endless dark, Commander Drake stared at the holographic image of the fallen moon. She whispered softly to herself, a voice only the stars could hear. Rest now, soldiers. The monsters did their job. The galaxy had changed. Wherever the Karath swarm moved, planets burned, colonies fell, and despair spread like a virus. Yet the humans pressed forward, relentless and unyielding. Commander Elena Drake sat in her flagship Resolute, staring at the holomap that displayed the swarm's new formation. The red blotches moved like a living thing, adaptive, dangerous, and intelligent in ways humans had yet to fully comprehend. "Commander," said Lieutenant Wren, her voice tense. "The swarm is splitting. 2 main clusters are heading toward Volari Prime and the outer colonies simultaneously." Drake's jaw tightened. "Then we split our forces. Send Fleet 1 to the inner system. I'll lead Fleet 2 personally to the outer colonies. If we delay, entire civilizations fall." Captain Malik frowned. "We're risking everything, ma'am." "Your fleet alone," Drake cut him off. "I don't have the luxury to wait. Lives are already lost if we hesitate." She leaned back in her chair and ran a hand over her face. Every decision carried consequences. Every move meant death for some. But hesitation had already cost countless lives. The Volari Council had grown uneasy. Tareth Vel met Drake privately in the observation chamber. "Elena, your tactics are ruthless. Entire Krath pods destroyed, yes, but also moons, forests, even cities." Drake didn't look at him. "They adapt faster than any defensive line can hold. If we don't strike decisively, the swarm will regroup. And when they regroup, the next wave will leave nothing standing." Tareth's voice was heavy. "Your methods frighten us. They are monstrous." Drake finally turned to face him, her eyes sharp. "Then maybe monsters are exactly what this galaxy needs." The next phase began at Corin Prime, a resource-rich planet whose industrial cities had just begun rebuilding after the first wave. Sensors detected Karath swarms descending from the outer rim. Red lights flashed on the human holomap, tracking hundreds of ships entering the planet's orbit. Drake's fleet positioned itself strategically. Fighters and drones created a shimmering wall of defense in orbit, while massive human dropships prepared to deploy troops directly onto the planet's surface. "Ground units ready," Drake reported. "Delta Battalion and Sigma Squad will push to the urban zones. Civilians must be evacuated before they reach the cities. No mistakes." The Volari commanders watched from behind reinforced shields, uneasy. To them, these humans didn't look like saviors anymore. They looked like predators preparing to strike. When the Karath landed, chaos erupted. Ships smashed into the atmosphere like meteors. Swarms spilled onto the industrial cities, tearing apart everything in sight. The Volari cried out in terror, running for cover. And then came the humans. Black-armored soldiers deployed from dropships in perfect formation. Their weapons unleashed torrents of fire and energy, cutting swaths through the Karath lines. Drones zipped above, scanning for hidden pods. Humans moved silently and with terrifying precision, each strike perfectly calculated. The Volari whispered among themselves, "They are killing like demons." But as the bodies of Karath fell, another realization settled over them. These so-called demons weren't cruel. They were saving lives. Every attack protected the Volari below. Every fireball of energy cleared civilians' paths. For the first time, the Volari began to understand. Monsters could be heroes. Deep in the city, Commander Drake led a squad through a ruined industrial district. Smoke and ash filled the air. She glanced at Lieutenant Wren. "Delta Squad," Drake said. "We push forward. Civilians are trapped in the southern sectors. Keep your eyes sharp. This swarm is smarter than before." The soldiers nodded silently. They moved like shadows, their armor absorbing debris, their weapons precise. They fought relentlessly, but every time the Karath fell, new pods emerged. "Commander," Wren said, "we're being surrounded." Drake smiled grimly. "Good, they think they can trap us. Let them learn the hard way." She tapped her wrist communicator. "Activate Project Legion." The Legion was humanity's secret weapon. Soldiers enhanced for extreme combat. Faster, stronger, more resilient than any ordinary human, yet still carrying the same sense of duty and courage. These were not monsters of mindless rage, they were monsters of will. As they deployed from the dropships, the city streets shook beneath their boots. The Volari gaped in awe and fear. The Legion moved like a single organism, sweeping through Karath lines, annihilating anything in their path with deadly precision. "Civilians are clear," Drake reported. "Delta Squad, push forward." Sigma flanked the hive nests. Red fire lit the sky as human weapons tore apart Karath ships and creatures. Entire streets crumbled under the battle, but the humans never faltered. They adapted, anticipated, and executed without hesitation. Watching from orbit, Tareth Vel could not help but feel a mix of awe and horror. "They are monsters, but they are saving lives," he whispered to himself. Drake's words from the moon of Tyrannel came back to him. "Sometimes, monsters are the only ones who can stand against the dark." The Volari fleet began to move closer, joining the humans in coordinated maneuvers. It was the first time the alliance between species felt real. The humans fought like monsters, but also like guardians. Their strategy was unyielding, their courage unmatched. The battle lasted for hours. Buildings collapsed, Karath hives burned, and the streets ran red with firelight. Yet the humans pressed on. They carried their wounded, rebuilt defenses in minutes and never let a civilian come to harm. Delta Battalion found themselves surrounded in one sector. Hundreds of Karath approached from all sides. Commander Drake assessed the situation calmly. "Legion units, deploy." From the shadows of ruined skyscrapers, genetically enhanced soldiers emerged. They moved faster than the eye could track, striking from multiple angles simultaneously. Karath creatures fell before they could even react. The Volari watched silently. For the first time, they realized the humans were not fighting for glory, not for conquest. They fought because they could not stand by while others died. At the heart of the city, Drake faced the largest Karath pod yet. It was massive, thrashing violently, a living tower of black chitin. "Team, focus fire," she commanded. Energy cannons, drones, and Legion soldiers attacked in perfect unison. The pod screamed as fire and energy tore through it, finally collapsing into molten ash. Drake lowered her weapon and looked around. Civilians were safe. Her troops were still alive, though exhausted. The cost was high, but the city survived. She whispered to herself. One step closer to the swarm's end. As the sun rose, the battle was over. The Quran Prime skies cleared. Smoke drifted in long streams across the horizon. Civilians emerged from shelters, cautiously stepping into streets now littered with debris and fire. The Volari walked among the humans in stunned silence. They had witnessed destruction, power, and sacrifice, and all carried out without hesitation, without complaint, without fear. Tareth approached Drake again, his face pale. You saved the city, but at what cost? Your people. Your soldiers. Drake met his eyes. They knew the cost. Every soldier who joins us knows that. And every human who fights knows why we do it. Tareth lowered his gaze. You are monsters. But you are also heroes, Drake nodded slightly. Monsters and heroes often wear the same face. The universe doesn't care what you are. It only cares if you act. That evening, the humans began preparations for the next target. The Karath had learned quickly from their defeat, and Drake knew they would strike harder. But for the first time, she felt a sense of hope. The tide was turning. Humanity's monsters, born of survival and pain, were slowly pushing back the darkness that threatened the galaxy. And the Volari, who had once doubted, now followed their lead, learning to fight not with hesitation, but with determination. Drake looked at the stars beyond Corin Prime, her mind already calculating the next move. The galaxy was vast, the Karath infinite, and the war far from over. But as long as Earth's monsters stood, the darkness had no chance to win. They were the shield, they were the storm, and they were only getting started. The galaxy held its breath. For months, humanity's fleets had pushed the Karath swarm back from countless worlds, burning hives, crushing pods, and protecting billions of lives. Planet after planet began to see light again, though the scars of battle remained visible in every cratered city and shattered forest. Commander Elena Drake stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching as reports came in from across the galaxy. Every sensor pinged another defeated swarm, another planet liberated, another life saved. Yet even in victory, she felt no triumph. Every win carried a price she had learned humans were willing to pay without question. In the council chambers of Volari Prime, the elders gathered to discuss the events. Their worlds were free for now, but the cost was undeniable. The humans had not come as saviors, they realized. They had come as hunters, as monsters shaped by survival and war. Counselor Tareth Bell spoke, his voice filled with awe and unease. They saved us, yes, but their methods, they are terrifying. Another elder nodded. They do not fight like any ally we have known. They are something else. Tareth looked toward the stars, where the human fleets moved like shadows against the void. They are Earth's children. They are what humanity has always been when pushed to the edge. And perhaps they are exactly what we needed. The final battle came at the edge of Volari space, where the largest Karath hive yet had taken root on a frozen world called Aethera Prime. The hive sprawled over the mountains and ice plains, a dark and writhing mass. Drake gathered her commanders. This is it, she said. The hive is enormous, and the swarm has adapted to everything we've tried so far. But we cannot let it escape. If it does, countless civilizations will fall. Captain Malik stepped forward. Ma'am, casualties will be extremely high. Even the Legion, Drake interrupted. We knew this going in. They are the monsters who protect the galaxy. It's time to show them why. The human fleet spread across Aethera's orbit. Bombardment began, tearing into the hive's outer defenses. Legion units deployed to the surface in waves, moving faster than the Karath could react, striking from multiple angles. The Volari watched, hearts pounding, as the humans became a storm of black armor, fire, and precision. The Karath Queen emerged from the hive. Towering and terrifying, she roared a sound that shook the ground. Swarms of smaller Karath followed her, filling the sky with black wings and teeth. Drake did not flinch. She raised her communicator. All units engage, no mercy. Protect civilians at all costs. Annihilate the hive. The battle erupted. The humans fought like a living weapon. Each soldier moved with deadly intent, anticipating the enemy, covering each other and never pausing. The Legion struck from shadows, decimating Karath lines before the creatures could mount an attack. The Volari gasped as massive explosions tore through the ice plains, and yet the humans pressed forward without hesitation. Every step was measured, every strike precise. Hours passed. The hive seemed unending. Each time a Karath pod fell, two more replaced it. The Queen roared, lashing with her massive claws, and the Legion barely held their ground. Drake coordinated the attack from a forward station, her eyes sharp, her mind calculating every possibility. "Focus fire on the Queen's legs," she commanded. "We bring her down before she can flee." Drones circled the Queen, distracting her while the Legion struck. One by one, the massive black limbs fell. The Queen staggered, wounded but still alive. Drake took a deep breath and spoke to her team. "Now end this. For every planet they tried to consume, for every life they threatened, we finish it." Energy beams, plasma fire, and synchronized strikes tore into the Hive Queen. She screamed, and the hive itself seemed to tremble in pain. Finally, with one massive explosion, the Queen fell and the swarm scattered. The battlefield was silent. Ice and ash covered the plains. The humans stood among the wreckage, bloodied, tired but unbroken. The Valari approached cautiously. They had never seen such power, such unflinching resolve. Tareth Vel stepped forward, addressing Drake. "Hers, who have done the impossible. Your people are unlike anything we imagined. You have defeated the swarm completely." Drake looked at him, her eyes steady. "We didn't do it to impress anyone. We did it because if we didn't, there would be nothing left to save." Tareth nodded slowly. "You are saviors, but not as we expected. You are monsters of war, yet heroes of life." Drake allowed herself a faint smile. "Heroes and monsters often wear the same face, and sometimes only monsters can protect the innocent." As the human fleet prepared to depart, the Valari tried to express their gratitude. Children presented flowers. Citizens sang songs of thanks. Officials offered honors, but Drake declined. She walked through the cities quietly, observing the people they had saved. She watched Valari children play among ruins, survivors rebuild homes, and families embrace after months of fear. Her soldiers worked silently, tending to the wounded, repairing machines, and preparing for the next mission. When Tareth spoke again, it was not as a counselor, but as a witness to what humanity had become. "Elena, I do not know how to thank you. Your people, your monsters, they have given us hope. But at what cost?" Drake's voice was calm, almost soft. "Hope is never free, and monsters always pay the price." In the quiet of space, Drake looked at the stars. The galaxy was safe, for now, yet she knew the war had changed everyone. Humanity had shown its true nature, relentless, adaptive, and willing to sacrifice itself for others. Some called them saviors, others whispered in fear. But Drake knew the truth. Humanity had become what it needed to be, a force the galaxy could not ignore. Monsters, yes, but monsters with hearts capable of the greatest courage. She sent a final message to Earth Command. Mission complete. The galaxy is safe, but the cost is high. Prepare for future conflicts. Humanity has shown its face to the stars. The response was simple and familiar. Acknowledged. Humanity always pays its price. We move forward. The Valari stood and watched as the human fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Silence followed. The galaxy held its breath. For months they had feared these black-armored soldiers. Now they revered them. A Valari child tugged at Tareth's hand. "Counselor, are they monsters?" Tareth looked to the horizon where the last human ships vanished. "Yes," he said slowly. "And yes, they are also the only ones who can protect us. They are monsters, and saviors all at once." The child nodded, eyes wide with awe. "Then thank you, monsters." Tareth smiled faintly. "Yes, thank you, monsters." Commander Drake sat alone on her ship's observation deck, staring at the galaxy she had helped protect. Every star reminded her of worlds saved and lives lost. She whispered softly, "Not to anyone, not to anyone alive, but to the ghosts of those who had fallen. You fought well, soldiers. The monsters did their job, and now the universe will remember what humanity is capable of." Outside, the stars sparkled, indifferent to the battles below. Yet humanity had left its mark. A galaxy that once doubted Earth now feared and revered it. They had been called saviors, and they had become monsters. And in that truth lay the ultimate victory.